Okay, and I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. Needed to fix something there, but the problem is all solved. So, today, what we are going to be doing is something that some of you may remember from when the Rift Watchers expansion was released, and that was to do with a little thing called a tier list. So we're going to go through these reward cards, and as I threatened on someone else's stream earlier in the week, we're also going to end up making a tier list based on the quality and or quantity of the hair and the way in which the hair is styled on these Splinterlands rewards cards, because I am incredibly unqualified to characterize hair, and it could be hilarious. So we're going to start off by looking at this first reward card in the pile, which is called the Ferox Defender. So it's a fire card, it's a common, it has protect, it's got a little bit of repair, and it's got a shatter at max level, so it sort of counters itself. I see this as a replacement for the ranged creature that's got all of these abilities, except this one seems to be a little bit tankier. I don't see it being very amazing as being a primary tank, however. So based on these reasons, I'm going to throw it into the maybe not category. But based on its hair just appears to be a font of lava, which I think is pretty cool. So in terms of hair, I think we would see this particular card placed somewhere along the lines of, yeah, it's a pretty nice hairdo. So that's where we're gonna stick the Ferox Defender, because his hair is made of freaking fire. That's pretty incredible. Its style is just amazing when you're doing that. The next card is one that I like a fair bit. They look like they're a little grenadier, but they look slightly more useful than a grenadier in terms of the abilities that they get. So we get Martyr, which is one of the new abilities, and the game is being slightly buggy for me here. Martyr gives every creature alongside +1 health, +1 armor, +1 speed, +1 damage of whatever it is, provided it's got armor, of course. So that seems like it's a card that you want to have come through, do a whole bunch of burst damage, then perish to help out on the battlefield. And its low health and moderate speed probably help to build towards that as a goal. So you'd probably prefer that card to be alive almost right to the very end. I think it's going to be an interesting card, as are most of these cards with this Martyr ability. The question is, where do we place the Firecaller? I think their hair's pretty good. That little thing of fire that is going behind it is probably pretty troublesome, because it looks like their hair has an enormous amount of hairspray in it, which is typically flammable. And you wouldn't be that gutsy unless you were going onto the catwalk. So Firecaller is going to be our first catwalk hairdo, I think. Although I am noticing a trend that most of these cards in Fire Splinter have just hair that is made of fire. In terms of battle, I think this guy's probably in the sure why not category, which I've just shortened to sure, because I feel as though there might be better options for 5 mana. You could play something with Scattershot. I mean, if you're playing this guy with Yasik, then okay. He still sort of feels like a sure for me. He doesn't feel like something I'd be selecting Fire Splinter to play. So next up is the Firewatch Devil, which immediately, this guy doesn't actually have any hair, so he's going into the bottom tier of the hair splinter. He gets to wear a hat because he seems to not have hair at all. In terms of his battling abilities, he's got an interesting mix of stuff, and each of these abilities I enjoy for different reasons. I always enjoy Life Leech, because it gets the ball rolling on some creatures and makes them incredibly strong and amazing. With Jotun, this guy is basically something I would play every single time. Because he'd be doing blast damage plus life leech, dispelling people, and if he happens to hit someone that has no attack, which is going to be rarer with the weapons training skill that is being introduced, he's going to be pretty good. I don't know if dispel's going to take care of weapons training and remove it, but I should hope that it does, given that dispel's going to shortly be removing bloodlust. And I'm going to firmly put this guy in the push and shove category. Feel free to disagree as I go about putting this in. Now we move off to the summoner, which is the Lamator, as they shall forever be known, but they're actually named the Eternian Brune. And not even a brute, just a Brune. They give Fire Splinter the ability as... Oh, that's awesome. That Oppress is supposed to work as normal on trained cards. Yeah, then I think I might actually move Firewatch Devil into the cheating category then, because I feel like that's going to be really, really good. The fact that he's got Dispel along with it makes that combination incredibly lethal. And given the fire summoners, where you could either have the scatter shot or the blast available in combination with him, decent speed, he's going to be great. Gladiators in fire. I think nobody talks about fire gladiators because they're typically pretty poor quality. So it'll be interesting to see what Eternian Brune can do with some fire gladiators. Firstly, again, this is another card that has no hair. So he is going to just go along and be in the category of, you should probably wear a hat, dude, or maybe a helmet. I mean, he looks like he's ready to go into battle, but he's not exactly fully prepared to do that. I think all of these summoners, given their high mana cost, beard tier. I mean, there hasn't really been any beards apart from this guy. And, you know, beards are allowed on the catwalk as well. We'll get there. We'll see some. At least I hope there's some characters that have got beards here, because if they don't, then, you know, this edition's just a massive wasted opportunity by the team. I think where I'm going to probably put most of these summoners is going to be firmly in between sure and maybe not, because I'm not too sure whether or not they're going to have some useful abilities. So that's going to go there. Time will tell whether or not gladiators in regular battles are going to be amazing, because Dispel's going to do some cool stuff to make Bloodlust easier to manage. Next up, we've got Idri Fire or Lidri Fire. It's hard to know because capital L's and lowercase i's look the same, and I'm going to pretend that I'm unable to read. This is a 6 mana card with no attacks. It has Phase, Return Fire, Redemption, but it has 10 health, and it has Taunt. This feels like a cheaper version of the Coriol Lurker. Not quite full Coriol Lurker, but it doesn't have enough speed to let Phase be really effective, I think. Fire's already pretty weak to magic, so I don't know. I think this card is a missed opportunity, and with all the giant killer that's floating around in most of the splinters these days, despite the fact that the art on this card is pretty freaking amazing, I'm going to put this card in the why exist because it's just not quick enough. Sure, if you combine it with a blind and other speed buffs and stuff, it'll be nice, but it's not great enough. It's not good. And in terms of this character, in terms of their hair, I'm not overly impressed. It's just hair. It's just an ordinary sort of haircut. It wouldn't be something that would be remarked upon. There's no split ends, there's no frizzy bits, so it can't be a bad hair day. It's just its hair. That's where I'm going to place that card, and that's my justification also. So next up, we've got the Phyrexian Hero, which is the first legendary of the fire set here. And they've got weapons training, they've got reach, and they've got blast shield, which is actually a pretty good combination of things to have. Are they going to be better than Phineas Rage as a second position fire creature / off tank? I think it's going to be situational. Who would you put behind the Phyrexian Hero? Could you have Idri Fire behind and then a big proper tank in the front to take some hits? It's hard to say how this is going to work, but that blast shield is going to be a great little piece of defense, because then you'd have Idri with an attack, but they wouldn't be necessarily able to use that attack because I believe it would bestow a melee attack, the same attack type as the creature who's got weapons training. So a description of how that works. Adjacent monsters gain half of this monster's attack if they have no attacks themselves. Yeah. So this would create a big, monstrous tank in the front line. I think that weapons training ability is going to be pretty good. But who in Fire Splinter would go in front? We could put Idri in front of the Phyrexian Hero, but still I feel like they'd be super fragile. This one I'm not sure about. It depends on how well Idri would work. So this one's going to go between maybe not and why exist. And unfortunately, it's also, once I put it in the right spot, it is also going to be one of those cards that really, it should just wear a hat. I want to see hats that allow the horns to come through. So, and that's also an opportunity for DEC to be burnt for hats for characters, because every character is going to need a hat. Maybe those will be the items. Do you guys remember when Team Fortress 2 became a game about hats instead of a game about dungeons and doing things and capturing flags and stuff? Because I sure do. So that's what we've got from Fire so far. And now we've got the second legendary of the Fire Splinter. We've got Soriel the Bale. This card reminds me of the Chaos Legion card Ra in Death Splinter, because they've got the double strike, they've got a blind, they've got a rust. But they're magical, but they're very slow. They're super slow with only 2 speed. That seems to be a common thread with Fire Splinter magic cards. I like using Fire Splinter magic, but I think they're more of a maybe not card than they are anything else. So that's where I'm going to place them. And I don't think there's a hat big enough for this dude, but again, what we've learnt so far is that Fire Splinter. Actually, no. We're just going to say that this guy's having a bad hair day. Like, his head's on fire. There was some hair there, but now it's all burning away in a blaze. So yeah, I'm gonna put this guy in the maybe not category in terms of would I play him. And of course, these graphics that I'm creating will be available on my Peak D post for this stream replay, which will be available tomorrow. So if you want to download these pictures and make them a meme or whatever, feel free. Next up, we move over into the blue Splinter, and we've got the Swamp Spitter. I like the fact that this guy's got a ranged attack, repair, and giant killer. Fills a definite niche in the Splinter of blue, but it reminds me a little bit of Tortoise Chief, and it also reminds me of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle because it looks just like one. And, you know, given that blue Splinter is all about water, it makes sense that it looks like a turtle. And immediately, I mean, this guy's already wearing a hat, so he has to go into the wear a hat category. Except in his case, I'd suggest that he wear a different hat. In terms of their utility in battle, however, they've got repair and giant killer. It's a pretty good combination. There's a fair few shatters in blue Splinter that could be used alongside this guy to make sure that his range damage penetrates, but he'd be much better with piercing. Or if he additionally had piercing, I guess he wouldn't be a common anymore. I feel like I'd choose a different card for 7 mana. So I'm gonna cautiously place the Swamp Spitter in maybe not. Maybe I'm being too harsh on these cards. I am looking at them from the perspective of playing in Diamond or Champion League, as opposed to what their lower levels would be. But that's where I think that Swamp Spitter should sit. Now, this is the card that inspired the desire to make a tier list based on hair, because when I saw this card, the first thing that caught my eye was just the curvature of the hair and the way in which it all comes together as a character. And Coastal Sentry is definitely walking down the catwalk with a hairdo like that. So they are going firmly into that catwalk territory. In terms of their utility in battle, that's another story. This is a card that would be helped out by something like Demoralize. You'd almost want your team to play Demoralize because of the fact that this card has double strike. So they would take down any force field characters with much ease if they had 4 damage. I think that this card is going to be very useful as a result of that, combined with the fact that they've got the knockout. I'm going to put this card somewhere between sure and maybe not, because they're going to be pretty situational in terms of combat. The other issue is that there's a whole bunch of stuns in blue Splinter, but they always stun not the front line, which is where this card would attack. But by that same token, you wouldn't put this card straight out in the front. With Reach, with Possibilis, they could be useful, but I'm confused by where to play them in a team and when to play them in a team, given the fact that they cost 10 mana. They would have potential, but I think their potential lies more within Wild League as opposed to Modern. In a Wild League game with a Frost Giant in the front, Coastal Sentry in second position, could be pretty fun, but it could be incredibly fragile as well because they're very susceptible to magic. Speaking of magic, we've got the Riverboat Captain, who again is a character who is wearing a hat, and they are an interesting card. They seem to be a almost direct replacement for Ruler of the Seas, except a slow version of Ruler of the Seas. And if they're anywhere near as effective as Ruler of the Seas, they are going to be highly sought after. So they're going to be in the push and shove category if you could push and shove your cards. Unfortunately, on the hair front, they're already wearing a hat. So they too can probably wear a different hat. I didn't anticipate there being so many hats in this particular series of cards. Now we have the Summoner. So we've got +1 life, and we can use Gladiator cards in Blue Splinter. Again, there's no Gladiator cards that are incredibly amazing or incredible in Blue Splinter. The +1 health may not be super useful either. I think I'd rather play something like Possibilis over this card because I don't really see how much difference a Gladiator card would make in combat. So this card is actually, no, it's going to be less than maybe not. It's just going to be in the why exist category because I don't see the point. And I'm happy for people to say to me which Gladiator card they think would work. With this character, in terms of their hair, I think it's pretty good hair. It certainly takes some time in the morning to get that stuff ready. So I think it's beyond just being hair. I think it's a pretty nice hairdo, but you wouldn't see them walking around on a catwalk with that standard of hair. It looks a little bit ragged, but you know, it exudes personality, unlike their abilities in combat. Next up, we've got Noah the Just, who comes to us with the Martyr ability. So they'll give +1 attack. Again, this is a card that I'm not sure what purpose it serves in Blue Splinter because it looks like it renders a Quatus pretty pointless, which it does because it's got backfire, but it's got backfire and dodge, which is sort of a useful combination. But I just don't understand how it will work in combat. I think it needed something different because it's something where everything around it is likely to die quicker than it itself is, which makes me feel like it's not all that useful. So I'm going to place it somewhere between why exist and maybe not, because I don't really see the strength in it. In terms of hair, this one is pretty divisive because he's fundamentally just got a mullet. You know, his hair's short at the front, long at the back. And I don't know, I don't think he pulls it off very well. Some people pull off mullets quite well, but with this particular guy, I don't know. I think I want to put him halfway between having a bad hair day and wearing a hat. But it's a conscious effort to have hair the way in which this dude has it. So it's probably gonna be... No, we're sending him to hat territory. I'm officially against the purple mullet. It's like he's tried to make an effort, but absolutely not. I do not approve. So next up, we've got the Kulu Mastermind, which is a legendary card, and it has weapons training, opportunity, shield, and enrage. That is a wonderful combo. It's a tanky opportunity card, which is pretty rare. I really like the artwork on this one as well, on the Kulu Mastermind. So they've got quite the variety of abilities. Got to think about it in the context of battle. They're quick. The only thing that makes them vulnerable is the fact that magic is going to hurt them a lot. But with Possibilis, this guy in second position might be pretty good. I would have no problems playing this card. I'm going to place them firmly in the category of sure, I'd play them. Now, this guy doesn't have any hair. I feel like this wear a hat category is getting very busy, but it's got to go here because it's only got the Lovecraftian tentacles coming off of his face, which isn't really hair, and I'm definitely going to run out of space on that wear a hat row of the hair tier list at this point in time. Next up is Musa Saline, who's a legendary with Scavenge, Shatter, and Dispel. They are very similar to the Firewatch Devil, that Fire Splinter card, which is confusing, but I like the Shatter and I like the Scavenge. The only problem is they're going to be very weak to Magic Reflect. I think this card is of limited usability as a result, so I'm going to put them in Why Exist as a result of that, because a single Magic Reflect or Void Armor is just going to ruin this person's day, and pretty much every Splinter has a counter to that. In terms of hair though, they've gone to some effort. I'd say it's pretty nice. We've pretty much established that Blue Splinter's got better hair at this point than Fire Splinter, but hair has been more consistent on Fire Splinter. So we're going to move on and have a look at Green Splinter. And we're going to start off with the Fungus Flinger, which is a pretty cute looking card. I'm going to rate its hair first because its hair is just made of mushrooms, which is pretty cool. And I think that's something that people would want to see on the catwalk because it's completely unconventional. It's out there. It's unique. But while it's walking down the catwalk, is it useful in battle? It's got Martyr, so it gives everyone +1 attack. It's going to promote the enemy from missing. And it's got Snare, but it's only got 4 speed. So an opportunity creature is going to come in, like a Cthulhu Mastermind, and just smack it out of this world into death, because it doesn't have enough speed to get through there. So I don't know, in terms of combat utility, it's going to be interesting to see how this Martyr ability actually works in practice. So we're going to go ahead and pop this one in. Maybe not, because I'm unsure as to how it will work. Next up, we've got Terracious Grunt, who looks to be a pretty simple card for a common. 2 abilities, 6 mana, Void and Return Fire. I don't see why you'd play this card over something like the Pelacor Conjurer, Pelacor Mercenary, or the Flash Golem, or Unicorn Mustang, or anything else. So firmly putting this one and immediately putting them in Why Exist. I don't really see the point. And then for its hairdo, I think I'm gonna have to put it. I mean, it's trying. If these vines that are growing around its trunk are meant to be hair, it's trying to do something. So it's just gonna be having a bad hair day. that's where we're going to put that card. And we'll move on down to the Madcap Magus, who is wearing a hat made of a mushroom. So many hats. So many hats in this edition. This may as well be called the Hat Reward Edition. Looking at what they can do in battle, though, they are a Life Leech card, which I like. They are a Dispel card, which is awesome. They've got Scattershot and Affliction. That seems to be a pretty good combination. The only problem is, are they going to actually be useful? It's going to be randomized by the Scattershot, really. You're not going to have control over what and who it attacks. It also has low health. Kind of want to put this one in the Shore category because it seems like the sort of card that I'd like to play, but would probably not play to its full potential. So let's just make that tier list there a little bit better. And I reckon the reason why this guy's got a mushroom as a hat is because he's having a bad hair day. So he's already wearing a hat. I didn't anticipate that so many of these people would be wearing hats. This guy's also really slow as well. 1 speed doesn't feel all that useful for Green Splinter. Although in combination with their new summoner, which is Lob Lowland, which allows you to bring in gladiators. Now, green is sort of the exception when it comes to gladiator cards because they have, what's it called? Quora, who's pretty amazing. So if you can keep the enemy off your Quora with some taunts, then Lob Lowland is going to be pretty amazing. But it's a pretty big question of whether you can keep the enemy off the Quora. So given that, I'm putting them between Push and Shove and Shore because I think that they have some good utility. Now this guy just seems to have a mohawk, which is probably better than just being hair. So I'm going to put him in the nice do category because you don't see very many mohawks these days. So he's got a nice do. You can go there. Hello, Wangsmith. Welcome. We are putting together a tier list for these new reward cards. There's 2 tier lists you might notice. The one on the left is based on the hair of characters. So we've got a couple that are going straight to the catwalk with their mighty hair. We've got the Firecaller there, Coastal Sentry, and the Fungus Flinger. Fungus Flingers go onto the catwalk because of the fact that they've got amazing, like, specialized growths in their hair, which would have taken stylists years to do. Then we've got a bunch of cards that have nice do's. So we've got the Firefox, the Ferox Defender, who basically has hair made of llama. It'd be awesome if his hair was made of llamas, but no, his hair's made of lava. Then we've got the Pembroke Nymph. That hair looks like it takes some effort to do, as does Musa Saleen's hair. And Lob Lowland was the newest addition to the nice do thing, because you don't see mohawks and mutton chops very often. I think that warrants the effort. And so far we've got one character categorized as just its hair. Its hair. There's nothing super special about this hair on Idri Fire, but it's hair, right? And then we've got a collection of people who are having bad hair days. And the people who are having bad hair days are Sorry, the Bale, because his hair is on fire. And Tenacious Grunt is also having a bad hair day because their hair's missing in the center of their head, and it's also not on their hair. It's sort of this growth of green stuff. Madcap Magus is wearing a helmet made of a mushroom because of having a bad hair day. And then we've got a whole bunch of people that should just be wearing hats. The Pirewatch Devil, the Eternian Brute, the Phyrexian Hero, and then we've got a whole bunch of people who are already wearing hats. So they've gone into this category, except for No Other Just. They've got a dirty, dirty mullet, so they should be wearing a hat to hide that. And Kulu Mastermind, they don't need to get sunburn, so I'm recommending that they too wear a hat. So that's my hair tier list so far. Is the helmet magic? Maybe. If the helmet is made of the Madcap Magus magic, then that's a pretty nice do. Let's move them. I'm gonna do that. Good thinking. They're summoning it as sort of this incorporeal hair. Then in terms of card tiers, we've got the same ones I think I used on my Chaos Legion, or at least I've tried to make them have the same level of emotion and feeling. So we've got cheating, push and shove, sure, maybe not, and why exist. So far we've got 3 cards in the maybe exist pile. And then there's some that are sort of straddling the borders between there. But we've just looked at Lob Lowland, so let's move on and have a look at the next card in existence, which is Thane New Song. And this card immediately reminds me of Brownie. And I like the fact that they've got Inspire, Strengthen, Swiftness, and then they throw Headwinds into the mix. They've also got pretty good survivability. They're a bard because they're holding a lute. And this card, I think, is going to be probably one of the most useful ones in the collection. So I think this guy is going to firmly go into the push and shove category. But in terms of hair, I think this guy might just be having a bad hair day. I don't think it's too bad. The llama hair. I could try to do a reenactment there for you. Dr. Alistair Daniel Williams. I could try and do a reenactment, but it just wouldn't be the same. I think once the VOD is up, you can go back and go through the VOD to pick out bits and pieces for the clip of the week. But don't worry, I'm sure I'll make some other hilarious statements along the way regarding the players and characters that we are looking at. I've still got another hour and 20 minutes for me to do something incredibly hilarious. After Thane, we've got Ava the Undaunted. And she's an interesting one with only 2 speed, 4 attack, weapons training, so she's going to give people adjacent 2 attack, 2 ranged attack, cripple, knockout, shatter. The shatter doesn't feel very useful because of the slow speed involved. Everything else seems pretty useful, but what doesn't feel useful is just the speed. I feel like she's too slow to be effective for a legendary with 4 abilities. I'm not all that convinced. I feel conflicted. So this one's easy on the hair tier list. It's just hair. It's nothing special. There's nothing incredible about it. In terms of battle, I don't know where to place it. I probably would be the least happy about pulling this legendary out of a box. I'm gonna put it in why exist, because for 8 mana I can think of so many other cards that I'd rather play. So let's go ahead and pop it in why exist. Then this is another card that I feel like, why exist? It's 11 mana, so Giant Killer is going to make it vulnerable. It's got Taunt, so it's going to be even more vulnerable to Giant Killer. It's slow with 1 speed. Sure, it's got Demoralize, but that Demoralize is probably going to result in people that would otherwise not be able to do damage to Tenacious Hulk be able to do damage to it. So it's a card that's got to be played incredibly carefully, I think. It could be useful. Could be very, very useful if played correctly, but in the hands of someone who has no clue what they're doing, I think it's going to not be the greatest card in the world. So I'm going to put this one in the maybe not category because I feel like there's better tanks for less mana in Earth Splinter. Hey Kira, welcome. And this guy is definitely having a bad hair day. So he's going on the bad hair day tier list over here, while he was also placed on the maybe not tier list for gameplay. And yes, there's 2 tier lists that I'm doing. One is for, on the right, this is the playability of the card. So we have cheating, push and shove, sure, maybe not, and why exist. So we've got a bunch of cards, and overwhelmingly I seem to be putting cards towards the bottom of it, and I'm probably going to run out of space here and I'll need to expand the canvas. And then over here we have a much tidier, well distributed tier list, which is based on the character's hair and how great the hair is. So we've got people that are going through catwalk, nice do, it's hair, bad hair day, and wear a hat. And Primary I'm very much enjoying this alternative approach. Can I one day request an episode of which card is which football club, any club in the top 6 tiers of the pyramid, more importantly, which card is Notts Country? You see, I have no idea because I don't know what football you're talking about. Are you talking about the English Premier League? Are you talking about an American soccer league? Are you talking about American football as in NFL? You're definitely not talking about Aussie rules football. You could be talking about rugby. That could be rugby league, or it could be rugby union. There's too many types of football in the world, and the only one that I have experience with is Aussie rules football. I have no idea. I've never followed the Premier League. That might be something that you could do, Prime, on your streams. I think that would be amusing. I think it or even as just a post on Hive, because I have no clue. I'd have to just look at logos and think, okay, which team does this card go with? If you do, send me a DM on Discord with a link to that post, and I will 100% upvote it, because I'm all for making this alternative Splinterlands content. I know that one of the teams is Arsenal in Premier League, so I'd put all the weapons in that team, having no knowledge of any of the other teams or whether or not they're actually currently competent at playing the sport. So yeah, that's my comment on all of that. We're gonna move on to the Imperial Knight, who looks like they are a really bizarre card in terms of their artwork. I'm seeing sort of half of a hound, half of a lion, a massive sword, and we were discussing this one yesterday on someone's stream. And this is just a better version of Uriel the Purifier. And I made the comment on the other person's stream that it's very clear that Uriel the Purifier is absolute trash because they're bested by a common card with more utility, more valuable abilities, less mana, and just all round better. So Imperial Knight is very much push and shove, even though their artwork is incredibly confusing to me. They're not quite as good as a Shield Bearer in terms of their artwork, but they'd be a good alternative to Shield Bearer. I mean, they're basically Shield Bearer, but with a heal, in which case, actually, I'm going to move this card up into cheating, because you play this card with Ilthian, and my god, they are going to be an absolute powerhouse. Throw in an Amplify. I've just realized, yeah, that might be one of my favorite reward cards of this set. They are definitely cheating. But what they're not cheating on is their hair. I can't tell if they have any hair, but I think we could all agree that they'd look cooler with a hat. So they need to wear a hat, much like all these other characters. Now this guy, the Drybone Barbarian, I like the look of this guy. He's got some sweet, sweet anger attitude. He's got Enrage, he's got Retaliate, and he's got Knockout. My only concern is there's not a whole bunch of excellent stuns in Life Splinters to support that Knockout. If there was a rule set where everybody had stun, that would be hilarious, but we don't have that rule set yet. So until we get that rule set, I think this guy's going to sit into the maybe not category of gameplay, and that's where I'm going to put him. But in terms of like his style, I know he doesn't really have that much hair, but the hair that he does do, it's pretty well placed on his head. It's pretty well balanced. There's a little bit of that side beard coming in. I think he's gonna go. No. He's just gonna go in the nice hair category. Because, you know, no, it's hair category, because he's a barbarian. He doesn't really care that much for it. It's just hair. Meanwhile, the next card is a little bit more confusing. It's the War Pegasus. And I feel like the artwork for this one could have been really amazing and epic, because Corrupted Pegasus is one of my favorite cards. This War Pegasus is not immediately jumping out as being one of my favorite cards in terms of its artwork, and neither is it in terms of its abilities. Now in Life Splinter, if I've got 7 mana and I want to spend it on a ranged creature, I'd probably go for the Double Strike Arbalist over the War Pegasus, but the Shatter and the Demoralize, and in the Flying rule set, very situational card. I think this one's going to go in the maybe not category as I'm picking my team for combat. And in terms of hair, I mean, it seems to have 2.5 different colors of hair. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. They've definitely gone to an effort to organize their hair in the morning, but it's just hair. You can't make it incredible by throwing a whole bunch of colors and dyes into it, I'm afraid. At least that's my opinion. Now, the summoner here, everybody gets an extra armor, and of course we get gladiators available. Now, I'm a bit biased when it comes to Life Splinter gladiators, because I really think Captain Katie is underrated compared to what's it called? Quora. So 1 armor on Captain Katie is definitely going to put a life summoner into push and shove territory, but we definitely need to take a moment to talk about that hair. That hair is what I would aspire to when I am an ancient man, with the long hair billowing in the wind, that beard also billowing in the same direction in the wind. This guy, he belongs in one place on the battlefield, and that's on the catwalk. So that hair is incredible. Amazing hair on, I mean, it's even in his name, Rough Mane. Like, why would you not say that he doesn't have amazing hair? He goes straight to the catwalk. And so far, we've managed to put one from every Splinter up in the catwalk. So that's pretty good. That's good balance, not only in terms of artwork, but in terms of hair on said artwork. So far, I'm not overly impressed by the blue Splinter based on this. Green Splinter, Life Splinter seem to be doing all right, but I'm only halfway through Life Splinter sort of assessment here. What I might do to make this a little bit easier to just see is just change up this, and then we'll go fit on screen and fit on screen. So we've got our hairdos on the top and our battling ability on the bottom. So we've got a slightly different reorganized view of the tier list now. And, you know, I'm aware of the fact that the Y exist is being cut off by the overlay here, but, you know, that doesn't really matter because we're going to pretend that those cards don't exist anyway. So, next up, who have we got? Evelyn or Vera. So we've got one of these cards that has no attacks. They have Inspire, Immunity, Thorns, and Repair. Judging by how great Epona is, and this seems to basically be Epona, but in Life Splinter, and it costs 1 more mana, but it also has Thorns and an enormously larger amount of health. This card is very clearly cheating, because it's an epic as well, as opposed to a legendary. That card's going to be incredible in battle. As for its hair, it's going to sadly be just relegated to the department of its hair. Sure, it's billowing away in the wind and looking nice and dramatic in the card portrait, but we can't hide the fact that it's just hair. Now, this is an interesting one. Aves Sturgis, we have an owl. Now, owls don't really have hair, do they? It's got feathers. But the fact that this is masquerading, I think, as Weirdbeard, because half of its plumage is in one shade, and then the other half of its plumage is in another shade, I'm going to say that this guy definitely does have a nice do, but we still got to figure out whether or not they're going to be nice in combat. They've got weapons training, so they're going to give everybody around them some magic damage. They've got redemption, which is hilarious, and rust, but they're so fragile. I really strongly feel like this guy would get taken out before they could even impact upon the battle, other than by whatever is adjacent to them. So they're firmly going to go into the Y exist category. Then next up, we have a legendary. We have Iziar, or Izar, or however we're going to pronounce it. We are unable to see this individual's hair, so we're going to allege that they're having a bad hair day. It's definitely appearing that way. In terms of combat, they've got that martyr ability. When they die, give adjacent monsters +1. When they are going to die, because they have Taunt, but they also have Void. I think this could work as a frontline creature. You don't see many magical frontline creatures. But I still think it's probably... It's going to be between sure and maybe not. Because I'm not sure, you know, that's a lot of shores, how they're actually going to work in battle. which brings us to Death Splinter. And we've got Possessed Puppet, who has puppet hair. So it's going to be just hair, but I've pasted it onto the wrong list. So we've got to consider it as an actual card. We've got Double Strike, Cripple, and Dispel. I feel like with that speed, they're going to be really great. They're going to be very Silent Shavi-like. But with Cripple being built in, it kind of makes Dallin not that useful. Why would you play them in your front line? They're very fragile. They're too high mana to be played in your front line in the low mana match. They don't have sneak. In a super sneak rule set, they might be useful. I think I'm pretty much putting this one between sure and maybe not. And I seem to be running out of space there on that category. And it was definitely going to go over here into the thingy-madoo of its hair, because that's exactly what it is. Now we've got Wily Coyotean. 5 speed, phase, 2 mana. With Magic Reflect, with Ouster, I feel like this guy's going to be really great. It's also the lowest mana card that I've seen so far out of these new rewards. I think this one's a sure. It looks to be pretty viable. It's got a good amount of health. And Death Splinter seems to be lacking those nice low mana set cards. This is going to synergize quite well with many things in Death Splinter, I think. Nice, really quick speed as well. I'd definitely pick this card over Pellicle Conjurer, or even maybe Riftwing. 2 attack is pretty questionable, but in a low mana match, will it really matter? And then in terms of its hair, well, it appears to be a coyote, so I don't know that it's aware of styling or whatever. So it's just hair, because it doesn't have that level of abilities. Another low mana card for Death. So it looks like we're filling some low mana problems in Death Splinter, which is nice. Ravenhood Warden, Protect, Inspire, and Fury. That seems like a pretty nice card, mainly because it's costing only 4 mana to play. And Inspire is very rare in Death Splinter. And so is Protect, actually. This one feels like it could be a better Tower Griffin. It's got very similar stats to Tower Griffin, except nicer stats because of that Fury. Why would you play Tower Griffin if you're playing Death? You'd play this guy instead. This guy, and we know how great Tower Griffin is. I'm going to allege that this guy is actually doing some cheating. I don't know how you guys feel, but this is a Tower Griffin, and we can't see if this guy's got hair or not because he's just wearing a hood. So I'm going to throw him into the bad hair day category as well. Because if you were fighting against this guy, I'd say that you'd probably end up having a bad hair day whether you wanted to or not. That's a surprisingly good card that I feel is going to be quite underrated until people realize how thoroughly annoying it's going to be in battle. The only thing it's really going to be vulnerable to is going to be Opportunity, but with Protect, it's got a little bit of security against that. Maybe if there's Opportunity with Magic or Piercing, sure. Now we've got the Summoner, which synergizes well with the Death Gladiators because it reduces health by 1. 6 mana is a bit rich though, just like most of these summoners are. In terms of hair, it's going to go in wear a hat because it's wearing a hood already. Catwalks best, yes. catwalk is the best hairdo category. And who do we have in the catwalk? Here you go. I'll zoom it in so it is visible. We've only got 4 people in the catwalk category. The fungus flingers there is a little bit of a meme, I think. But the others have truly exceptional hair, in my opinion. I think Rough Mane might be my favorite. Now, where was I putting Octavia? Did I place them? No, I didn't. I think they're probably going to go halfway between maybe not and why exist. So don't quite get it. Yeah, double tier list. Hair at the top, gameplay at the bottom. So each creature is featured on each tier list. And I'll throw these into my peaked post as well when I make my stream replay. Now we've got the Will-O-Wisp, which is just a searingly bright ball of energy. How do I categorize this hair? That's difficult. It's very difficult. I mean, it's got that little bit of flame coming off the top. I think we just need it wearing a hat, and then my confusion would be far less. In terms of gameplay, though, it's got flying, it's got weaken. Yes, weaken. Silence and blind. I feel like that's a little bit too expensive. 6 mana for those 4 abilities as an epic feels a bit rough. 12 health though, combined with potential weapons training, doesn't quite give me prismatic energy vibes. Yes, we can. I'll just categorize the Will-O-Wisp here. I think I'm going to put this Will-O-Wisp in. I've already put it in the hair category. I need to put it in the gameplay category. For 6 mana, I'd just play a Cursed Windiku. Maybe in the non-melee combats it would do better. But in the cheating category, Birds Bees, we've got the Pirewatch Devil, who's got the Life Leech, Dispel, and Cripple. We've got the magical version of the Shield Bearer. We've got Life's Epona, and we've got Death's Tower Griffin. That's my best way to describe these cards. A better version of Tower Griffin, even. So, the next one, always had a soft spot for legendary death cards. And I'm always had a soft spot for Resurrection as well. This gives Death another Resurrect. And that looks so cool with all those Cthulhian sort of mandibles coming out of its helmet. Weapons training, Fury, Resurrect. 2 speed. Is this just a new Ancient Lich? I think this is a new Ancient Lich, but with Fury and no Life Leech. So it feels a slightly different niche. But I'm all for Resurrect cards. Seems like it'd be pretty survivable. I'm going to put it in the Shore category because I'd play it. It's very clearly wearing a hat, however. So it can go in the wear a hat category. Then we have Usut or Usut, or however we're going to describe it. It's another death card with healing. Corrupted Pegasus was pretty amazing with healing. Cursed Wendigo was amazing with healing. It also has Bloodlust, but it has only 1 speed. Dispel would be powerful against it. Actually, you know what? You've got enough taunts in Death Splinter to basically ensure that Usut is going to be the last guy to die. He's basically Quora, but death. So he goes straight into the cheating category. And you know what? He's definitely having a bad hair day. Definitely having a bad hair day, because I don't know what is going on with that. It looks more like a mane on a bird. It's like a half bird, half dragon, demonic, skeletal beast of some sort. Now we come to Dragon Splinter, and we have the opposite of Quicks. Now, with Dragon Splinter, I have to ask myself, is there any Gladius cards that are dragons? Gladius, dragon. Turn off reward. There's 1 Gladius card that's Dragon Splinter. But you've got to consider the fact that Dragon Splinter can play... I've only got dragons in neutral left, so I may as well leave those filters on. Dragons can play any Splinter. So I think this one just needs to go bang smack in the middle as being an option of, sure, it could be useful, but it's going to be dependent on what Splinter you play it with, what rule sets you play it with. It's a confusing card. Now we have a 1 mana card with Scavenge, Silence, and Camouflage. It's only really going to be vulnerable to one thing, and that thing it's going to be vulnerable to... Oh no, I forgot to put Helios Matriarch in a hair tier. Where are we going to put Helios Matriarch? I think they've gone to some level of effort to have that hair. Let's have a look at their enlarged portrait. Yeah, they've gone to some level of effort to have that hair, but I don't think it's catwalk ready. It's just going to go nice do. This guy is just a snake. Krazok. I don't know how to pronounce it, but they've got Scavenge, Silence, and Camouflage, so it'll be vulnerable to Blast and Scattershot. Silence in Dragon Splinter, but 1 mana. You'd have to combine weapons training with them to be effective, but then they could be very dead very quickly. Having a look at the next card over with weapons training, because they don't really have a whole bunch of health. Maybe, excuse me, maybe a gold foil variant would be good to help like spring out some extra DEC when you've got a slot free on your team. But maybe not. Straddling the line of why exist. And in terms of hair, they're a snake. They don't have hair. But you know what snakes should do? They should wear hats. And now we've officially populated the wear a hat tier list. So this is becoming rapidly problematic. If we've got any other people that should be wearing hats. I don't know. We'll see. Next up, we've got Beric's Snake Eye. And they're not even a snake. They look more like a dragon lizard dude with a bow. And that's exactly what they have. They're very tanky. True Strike is awesome. I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to pour myself a little drink here to re-engage my voice after talking for so long. Such a long stint of speaking. But is there anything that any of you disagree with so far? Or are you just letting me have my ramble and then you'll destroy me later? I quite like the fact that this card has Cripple and True Strike, because the problem with, not Cripple, Oppression. The problem with a lot of Oppression monsters is they have difficulty hitting the things that they need to try and cripple, but don't have attacks. So I like the fact that it has True Strike in combination with it, but I don't like the fact that it costs so much mana to bring out to the battlefield. Maybe not. And here I'm running out of space as well on my tier list board. A lot of these reward cards are falling into the less than good category, but we'll see. Hey Ank, welcome. And in terms of hair, well, it really should be wearing a hat. So I think it's going to have to be time that I increase the canvas size here. We'll give ourselves another that much space. Oh, I did that wrong. I've only been using Photoshop since I was like a youngin'. I should really know this. There we go. And I'll fix up the black there later. But they should also be wearing a hat. Actually, no, I'll just fix up the black there now. Otherwise it'll get to me. No, I won't fix it up now. Because there's going to be like a bajillion layers in there. Fit that on screen. And we'll fit this one on screen. And we'll probably need to expand this canvas when we look at the next card, so we can classify the quality of its gameplay. Next one is Gobson Bomber. They're holding a little grenade. They're neutral. They've got charge, but they've got excellent speed. Oh my god, charge with camouflage. Where have you been? With piercing and fury. You are a very situational but incredible card. There's not many cards in the category of push and shove here yet. But guess where this one's going? It's going straight into that push and shove, because charge with camouflage, finally. It makes sense to play a charge character. Oh my god, amazing. This guy also should probably be wearing a hat. So if you're wondering what to do in Splinterlands, it's collect hats. So there's gonna be a shortage of hats based on this hairdo tier list on the top half of the screen. Next up, we've got Dumaki Orc, who is a neutral tank with only 8. Life Splinter would enjoy this card, but Shatter would destroy this card. I've got to put him in the why exist category for gameplay at least. In terms of hair, they're having a bad hair day. They're definitely having a bad hair day. Hey JB Saints, welcome. we want to put this guy. Oh my god. Photoshop is hating me right now. There we go. We want to put this guy in. Why exist? Why does this guy exist? Because they're too fragile. I can only think of one scenario in which they'd be useful. And there's better cards for the mana. Yes, we are. There's two rating systems here. The one at the top of the screen is judging characters based on their fashion choices and their hair. The bottom one is rating the cards based on their abilities in battle. So we've got 3 more cards to go through, and then we'll look at each tier list in detail, and we can have a vigorous discussion and debate about it. Next, we've got Venari Marks Rat. So they're a marksman, but they're a rat. They've got weapons training, so they're going to give everyone 1 range damage. They've got shatter, they've got snare. They only cost 3 mana. I don't know how to feel about this card. I feel like they could be useful, just because of the fact that they're neutral. I'd probably want to chase one of these in gold foil, just because sometimes you just need to waste 3 mana, but other times there's cards that you need to use 3 mana on, like a healer or a cleanse. So I'm going to put this guy in the sure category, which I feel like should also have a question mark. Like, sure is not average. Sure is like, sure, I'll give it a go. Yeah, it's a cheap martyr. If you have to have a martyr in your team, I feel like they'd be the one that would be easiest to kill. I don't know if that's an endearing property of a martyr. And as a rat, they too should probably be wearing a hat. I'm gonna have a lot of fun fixing up the tier list here. I just think all of these people would look better with hats. Next up is a card that looks genuinely interesting. It's a clockwork. It is literally a clock. Now, clocks don't have hair, and clocks don't wear hats either. But this clock makes people run fast, it makes them stronger, and it makes the enemy have less armor. But it only has 1 health and is incredibly fragile if hit by magic. Could be useful in no magic rule sets. It's situational. It's so situational. But I know that the moment I get put up against it in battle, I don't even know where to put it on the hair chart. So I'm just gonna like have it floating on the hair chart. And hey, Butops, thank you for the raid. In terms of gameplay, if I can get it on the right page there, I'm gonna put it like firmly in the why exist category, but I'm also gonna make it really tiny because I feel like it's the worst card that I'm looking at so far. Meanwhile, I don't know, maybe it's having a bad hair day because bits of the clock are like flying out of its thing. I don't understand that card at all. I don't get it. Meanwhile, we've got Drybone Raider as the last card of these Soulbound rewards that we're looking at. In terms of its hair, it's definitely possibly catwalk worthy. Let's have a closer look without pixelating it all the way. Yeah, that's a catwalk worthy hairdo. It's an esteemed list that only 5 cards have managed to make their way into. But enough of judging its fashion. What about judging its battle abilities? Actually, let's have a look at its hairdo again. Yeah, the hair is great. In terms of battle, we've got Double Strike, Cripple, and Shatter. That's a pretty lucrative card if you can play it with something that's got Taunt in another position. I quite like that card. But I still feel like it's just only able to sort of wrangle a... If I can get it into the right Photoshop file. It just feels like it's only able to make its way into... Sure, I'll play it. So let's have a look at each of these tier lists in sequence. So we've got the one for gameplay. So our top category in gameplay is guys who are considered to be cheating. So in that category, I've put the Pirewatch Devil. I think that this card synergizes really well with both Yasik and Jotun. Life Leech, Dispel, and Oppression. Then we've got the Imperial Knight, who is a anti-magic version of the Shield Bearer, but even better. Like way, way, way better. Pair it with Ilthian, and why would you ever play Shield Bearer again? Like, this card is off the charts amazing for the mana. Would be very surprised if that card doesn't get nerfed. Then we've got Evelyn Orvira with Immunity Thorns, some Hammer Time for Repair and Inspire. This is basically Life's version of Epona, so it's amazing. And then this guy is Tower Griffin, but better, but limited only to Death Splinter. Then we've got Quora, but not a Gladiator, and in Death Splinter, which is incredible and amazing, and just an outstanding card. Then for Push and Shove, we've got a new version of Ruler of the Seas, but for the slow rule set. Yeah, the Protect for Death Splinter is sorely needed, because they've got a couple of good repair creatures, but they just don't get any armor, which is the problem. Then we've got Thane New Song in Push and Shove. It's a new Brownie. You don't see Brownie played all that often anymore. We've got this Franz Ruffmay, because the Life Splinter Gladiators are really amazing. That's why they're in there. And finally, a charge card that has Camouflage. So I think that's going to be incredibly useful, but it could be vulnerable to Scattershot. Then in the Shore category, we've got Firecaller, who seems pretty adequate. Lob Lowland sits between Push and Shove and Shore, on account of the fact that Quora is a Gladiator. Then between Shore and maybe not is this Eternan Brune. Not really certain why you'd pick them over another Fire Splinter Summoner. In our Shore category, we've also got the Kulu Mastermind, another brilliant opportunity for Water Splinter. Combine it with Possibilis, going to be a pretty solid card. Then we've got Madcap Magus, who's got Scattershot, Life Leech, Affliction, and Dispel. I think this is going to be very similar to the current green Splinter. I think it's a Rift Watchers card. Green Splinter. No, it's not a Rift Watchers card. Maybe it is a Chaos Legion card. It's going to be similar to Acid Shooter, but for your Affliction and your Dispel. So I quite like that one. Coastal Sentry exists in the world between Shore and maybe not. because it's pretty expensive. It's got double strike, which is awesome, but you wouldn't throw this out in the front. Combined with the Possibilis, probably useful, but otherwise probably situational based on the rule set. Wily Coyotean, on the other hand, is definitely a shore for Death Splinter because they've got really no low mana tanks. And this is a great low mana tank that probably synergizes with other Death Splinter summoners. Same reason I've put Skok Duskblight there. Skok. Like Spock without the P. Skok. Skok. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. Or we can just call it Duskblight. I like it. It's a sort of vampire, ancient lich type card without the vampirism. I've put the Dragon Summoner in here as a shore. Great option. Same thing with the Venari Muskrat. Then there's a Drybound Raider, which is also shore. Means jump in your language. I don't think they're going to be doing much jumping with 2 speed. They're pretty slow. Drybone Raider is in that shore category. We'll play him. Double Strike, Cripple, and Shatter, but Double Strike across... They're just the new Vigilator, actually. I think I want to reassess them into being beyond shore and being into the push and shove category because they're a neutral Vigilator and that feels really powerful. Yeah. I don't know why I didn't pick that up before. They've also got that sort of War Chang level of utility where you can play them in potentially a melee only rule set. Yeah, but that Shatter, you play this guy with Yasik and it would be absolutely incredible. That's my first reclassification. Second looks. Let me go back out to remember where I was up to. So now we're straying into the realm of between shore and maybe not for both Iziar and Possessed Puppet. And I don't really understand the purpose of Iziar. They're going to die very quickly with the force field. Not force field, the taunt. And I never realized that there was like a figure in the middle of the taunt icon. I thought it was just arrows. The things you notice when you look at the stuff way closer than you should. Yeah, they're going to die really quickly. They would need force field to be effective. The martyr ability, they're definitely going to become a martyr very quickly, but just don't like the idea of them. Possessed Puppet is between shore and maybe not because it kind of renders Dallin obsolete as an option because they already come with Cripple. I feel like if you dropped Cripple and gave them something else, maybe gave them Demoralize, because that would help them out with their low health, make them less vulnerable to an opportunity. I feel like that would be a little bit better. But yeah, they're probably more maybe not than they are sure. Zard was disputing the winged boot on speed last night as well. Yeah, no, that's always been a winged boot. I've always seen it that way. I've never not seen it that way. Apologies for the rough zoom there. Then we're in the maybe not category. There's a couple of cards there. There's a lot of cards there. Ferox Defender. Don't feel like they really fit well into Fire Splinter. They feel more like a Life Splinter card apart from the artwork. Although Fire Splinter does need more repairs, or doesn't need more repairs. I feel like every time I encounter a Fire Splinter card, with repair, I get wrecked. But hey, that's what I see in it, at least. I'm just going to pour myself this drink because, again, I'm starting to lose my voice. I like Soriel. Why no? I think it's to do with the speed and the fragility. Because they're so slow, they're likely to be taken out by opportunity, potentially in one hit, by a lot of Splinter's creatures. That also makes them really vulnerable to snipe, depending on where you place them in the team as well. So there's a couple of things that I don't like about them. The weakness to snipe, the weakness to opportunity, the weakness to scattershot, and the low health. For 9 mana, I'd rather play what is it called? I have to flip back over into the game here. Fire. Oh, I can't filter by damage types, but it is a legendary card. Yeah, it's 2 more mana, but I'd rather play Kaladin. Maybe Soriel could be useful in reverse speed, but that makes them incredibly situational. They're not sort of a card that would be an instant go-to for every match and every opportunity. That also sort of puts Phyrexian Hero in between maybe not and why exist, because again they don't really synergize all that greatly with Fire Splinter. The weapons training is pretty good. The reach is great. The blast shield sort of makes them very much Corsair Buson without the support abilities, but I don't know, 8 mana seems pricey, and for a legendary to be in that second position seems uncomfortable to me. Swamp Spitter with repair and Giant Killer comes into a place where he is, yes, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Hero Turtle. For 7 mana, I can think of a lot more creatures in Blue Splinter that I'd rather play. Let's have a look at some of them, and we'll try and stick to modern stuff. Maybe I'd play Sea Stalker instead of Swamp Spitter, but I think it's going to be pretty situational there. I mean, River Helendale is a different category. I don't think we've got stats on the next Chaos Legion Summoner. Let's go have a look and see if there's anything on the test server here. Yeah, no, there's no stats for the next Chaos Legion Summoner yet that I can see or access, Juiceman. I'm sorry. It would be good to know, given that we've got only a couple of days before that. Yeah, I think Swamp Spitter is a little bit like Olaf Dampier. It's a Riftwatcher's card in Green Splinter, I think. Yes. It's a little bit like that, but maybe he's low-key a dragon, and he's just a poorer version of the Rooney Skyclaw. And Rooney Skyclaw is pretty incredible. Maybe we move Swamp Spitter up. Maybe we move them into the Shore category. I think they could sit there. Yeah. And now I've got a great big gap in the middle. Let's put them there. And now I've got to plug that hole. So we'll just move this dragon card over and confuse everyone who looks at this later and pretend that it was never there. So we've got weapons training, void, cripple, true strike. I actually quite like this card as well now that I look at it more closely. But it's vulnerable to a giant killer. It's got so much armor though. And that armor is magical. Hey back, Wayne. Currently going through a tier list for the Soulbound reward cards and how useful they're going to be in combat. So I've been building this over the course of the stream, and we've already gone through the top half. We've got the Snake Eye and below to deliberate on. I think I'm going to leave the Snake Eye here. You think he's a sure? Yeah, I'd rather play, and again, this might just be my alleged whaleness showing. For 10 mana, I'd rather play Robo Dragon Knight. Oh, well, it's 11 mana, but I'd still rather play Robo Dragon Knight. I mean, different classes of cards. Or I'd spend 4 more mana and play Chaos Dragon instead. Just leave it all to chance. The Oppress is going to be important, but Trained Ranger is going to be situational. Yeah, I mean, if you had a Lightning Dragon and you put him next to a Lightning Dragon, great. If you put him next to some magic damage dealers in the back line, great. In a 99 mana match, he'd be amazing. But I just don't see him being a immediate, I must play this card the moment you hit Dragon Splinter in a game. No Other Just is between that line of maybe not and why do you exist. They're too hard to kill as a martyr, so you're not really going to get that advantage out of them. And we all know how well backfire and dodge works together. Very poorly in my experience. See every game I've ever tried to play and win with Pellicord Deceiver. I mean Pellicord Defective, as I affectionately call it. Fungus Flinger, it's slightly more useful than No Other Just as a martyr, because it will die very quickly. But then it's also got blind, so it's going to try and dodge everything that tries to kill it. And the snare is going to be pretty useful, but it's only going to be useful on the front line. So this one sort of only really counters Pellicord Conjurer. It doesn't really do much else, I think. Then we've got the Terracious Hulk with Taunt, Void Shield, and Demoralize. And the Demoralize sort of doesn't really help it all that much. It's still going to be incredibly weak to shatter and physical attacks, and there's no shortage of physical attacks and enrage and other bits and pieces. Plus, for 11 mana, there's way better choices for a tank in Green Splinter. There's so many better choices in terms of tanks, and they don't even have to be legendary tanks. You've got the what is it called? The Mustang Unicorn Mustang rather. Granted, that's going to be going out of wild circulation when Rebellion comes about, but it's going to be still maybe with Mylor it'll be alright. Mylor plus a Queen Mycelia, but Mylor's going to go out of wild circulation too. So maybe that leaves it in the Thorns rule set, but who knows? And we've got the Drybone Barbarian, which sort of gives me Lord of Darkness vibes. They've got Enrage, Retaliate, and Knockout, but they're missing the stun. So you need to go find some stuns in Life Splinter to make him useful, which is why he's in the maybe not category. Then we've got the War Pegasus. Only really useful in the flying rule set, I think, which is why they're sitting there as being situational. Then maybe not, and why exist. Death Splinter, -1 health, and Gladiator cards. I don't feel like there's strong enough synergy between the Death Gladiator cards and -1 health to make this truly amazing and effective. Then finally, we've got Krajok, however that's going to be pronounced. Camouflage, Silence, Scavenge, 1 mana. They don't really feel like they serve much of a purpose to me. Drybone's a meh for you. Yeah, that's in my maybe not category. Yeah, and if there's force field running around, they're just going to get enraged and they're going to do what? 1 damage, but be angry about doing 1 damage. Feels kind of pointless. Yeah, I think even if they're like alongside someone with weapons training, they're going to be super vulnerable to Return Fire or Magic Reflect, because they're certainly not going to be a melee powerhouse. Maybe an equal opportunity. If you've got someone that's got weapons training that can give them opportunity, they'll become a 1 mana Screeching Vulture that can't be targeted by opportunity themselves. They'll be really useful there. But that seems like a really grasping at the bottom of the barrel justification for their existence. Speaking of justifying people's existence, here's another one that's designed for weapons training. They're just going to be super duper fragile. They don't really have enough speed to make the phase work all that well. With Taunt, they're definitely going to die very quickly. Sure, they're going to fling arrows back at you, but I feel like magic attacks are just going to absolutely destroy them, and fire's already weak to magic attacks, so I don't know, I'm not a fan of Idri Fire. I could be wrong. They could be like a new age Almo, for all I know, but I don't see them working that well. Again, why would I play Pembroke Nymph? I don't feel like water has strong enough gladiators. I'd rather play Possibilis or one of the other water summoners. Kelia, you got to consider Lux Vega in the equation as well. With Dispel, I just don't feel like this gladiator in regular battles ability is going to be all that useful, because taking away Bloodlust. Or maybe we just haven't seen gladiators do enough yet. Yeah, exactly. You're not going to play Kelia, you're just going to play Lux instead. It's 1 extra mana. So why would you bother spending? You would never spend 1 extra mana to go and use the Pembroke Nymph in exchange. Musa Saline, I feel like Magic Reflect Opportunity is out to get them very easily. Only 3 health. If they had 4 health, I'd feel slightly more comfortable, but they'd still be in the maybe not category. And then this one, 6 mana, Void, Magic Reflect, Return Fire. Granted, there's not a lot of Return Fire in Earth Splinter, but for 6 mana, you can play a Flesh Golem. You can play a Pellicle Mercenary. You can play a whole bunch of other stuff. What would be one of the other stuff? Oh, you could go all the way back and play a Stone Splitter Orc, but we're not going to go that far back. I want to try and focus this on modern. Yeah, I just don't see the point. That's Teratius Grunt. do you mean the Earth Splinter reward card that also had repair, the Centauri Mage? Or are we referring to the Terracious Grunt? Because if there was armor on the Terracious Grunt, I guess you could go Terracious Grunt, Centauri Mage, Mycelia, and have a pretty awesome front two monsters. But that's so incredibly situational. You could even throw in a is it an Oaken Behemoth? I'm thinking of no, a Minotaur Warlord. But at what point are you going to play two melee creatures? It feels way too situational and not that useful. Now I've put Ava the Undaunted in the why exist category. I feel like this combination of abilities for that lowly 2-speed, it's not all that useful. They'll be great in reverse speed, but that's about it. For 8 mana, it's kind of meh. I'd rather play so many other cards over this. The Oppression is pretty good, but there's no stuns. Like, there's a dearth of stuns now in Earth Splinter that knockout would be too unreliable for, particularly with only 2 speed backing up that knockout. And that leads me to the next underwhelming legendary, this Owl fella, Abe Sturgis. Yes, they give weapons training, which would be amazing with some cards. Yeah, why Shatter? I guess maybe to try and counter Wraith. But then you've only got 3 health. You're fragile as all heck. And you've only got 2 speed, so there's not a chance that you're going to dodge anything at all, ever. Will-O-Wisp, I sort of get the feeling that they're going to be a wannabe prismatic energy, but they're limited to Death Splinter. And 6 mana feels too expensive for no attack. Sure, 12 health's pretty good, but I feel like they're very much like Warrior of Peace, which doesn't get all that much use. It's basically Death's version of Warrior of Peace, which was a Life Splinter reward card. Was it Warrior of Peace? What I was thinking of? Where is it? Reward cards. Yeah, Warrior of Peace. It's basically Death's version of Warrior of Peace. 7, 6, 14, 12. Higher speed, but yeah. And then I've made a tiny Clockwork Aid because why exist, as someone in the chat earlier said, is they're just a worse version of the skull. The skull that exists in Death Splinter as a current reward card. Ever Hungry Skull. They're just a worse version of that, but with buffs instead. But limited to Life Splinter. So many better cards you could play in Life Splinter over that Clockwork Aid. Then Dumaki Orc. Why do they exist? I feel like there's a typo with 1 health. They've got Shield, Retaliate, and Thorns, but they've got 1 health. It feels like they'd be made to be played with Wraith, but then a single Shatter just absolutely annihilates them in 1 strike. So they feel absolutely useless to me as well. So yeah, that's my tier list for the Soulbound reward cards. But there's of course the bonus tier list as well, which is the most important tier list. And here we're judging the hair of each and every character. So we've got the characters that are going to take their hairdos out on the catwalk, which are the Firecaller, the Coastal Sentry, the Fungus Flinger, Franz Roughmane, and the Drybone Raider. So there's some redemption in the Drybone Raider. They get to come along with an amazing hairdo. And then these guys have got nice hairdos. We've got, yeah, absolutely, bonus points just because their name is Roughmane. Exactly. They've got the beard, it's windswept. They've got the long hair, which is also windswept. They've got the massive hammer. Not that the hammer has anything to do with the hair, but, you know, if I'm ever to age gracefully, this is how I'd want to do it. Long locks of flowing white hair. That's my plan. Then we've got the Ferox Defender with their lava mane, not the llama mane, like I said earlier, a hair made of llamas. But if you're still here, I've said it again. Their hair is made of llamas, rather llama. Oh man, their hair is made of lava. And additionally, nice hairdo. This looks like it takes a bit of effort to get ready in the morning. Here as well, that's at least 13 bottles of conditioner a week to keep that straight. And we've got the mutton chops mohawk thing going on. Madcap Magus is clearly just got hair made of mushroom. So that's pretty awesome. It's a nice do. This two-tone hairdo on the plumage of the owl. I'm going to say it's hair because we classified the fungus flingers mushrooms as being hair also. It's not quite a hat. We're going to call it hair because it looks like you could comb that top of that, the top bit of that mushroom, I think. And then the updo here on the Helios Matriarch's hair. And that take a bit to get ready with that headpiece as well. So it's a nice do. You know, don't take it from me. I clearly know nothing about fashion. Then we've got the whole, yeah, it's hair. You have it. I have it. Everyone has it. We've got Idri Fire, Ava the Undaunted, Drybone Barbarian. It's pretty well maintained though, but it is still just hair. The War Pegasus falls into that category as well. The die can't fool us. And then Evelyn Avora, same thing. It's just hair that's caught the wind. What a tragedy. I'm pretty sure the Possessed Puppet has hair, but it's probably the hair of its victims that it's slain. And of course, the Wily Coyotean also has just hair. Then we've got people that are having a bad hair day, as I failed to zoom in properly. We've got Soriel the Bale, whose hair appears to have caught fire. We've got Teratius Grunt, who's missing a whole bunch of hair on their actual head. Thane Newsong, their hair's not really all that great. Teratius Hulk, again, not all that great. Iziar's wearing a hood because they don't feel that great about their hair. Same thing with this Ravenhood Warden. Same thing with Usut, the Dumaki Orc. I've got less and less to say about their bad hair days. Then we've got the Clockwork Aid. I mean, they've got all their springs and stuff sort of jumping out. So they're having a bad hair day. Then we've got the best category. Should be wearing a hat, which is a absolute cavalcade of people that are either already wearing hats or should be wearing a hat instead of showing off their hair. This guy's sort of wearing a hat and a hood, which is a weird mix. And yeah, all of these guys should also be wearing hats. Where did I put Iziar or Izier or whatever they're called on my tier list? Good question. I put them somewhere between sure and maybe not, because I felt that they'd be great as a frontline tank, which is rare for something with magic. But you'd probably want to put them in second position or second to last position so you could take full advantage of that martyr. But I feel like they'd be pretty situational. They'd be vulnerable to both Giant Killer and Fury, so they'd die pretty quickly if you were expecting them to pop out and be existent in battle. And for 11 mana in Life Splinter, it feels kind of not all that impressive to me. At least that's my view on it. But I'll post these lists up with my Peak D post on the Hive blockchain when I upload my stream replay tomorrow. So it'll go up on my YouTube channel, and it will also go up on blog. So if you want to go see any of my other stream replays or some super duper old school streams, feel free to go jump onto my YouTube, chuck a subscribe, watch some of my old ancient stuff. I've got a really old playlist on there that's got ancient Splinterlands videos from the dawn of time. I've got one from the 16th of April that was uploaded 3 years ago on that playlist, as well as probably older videos. They were ancient streams. You can see how much I've changed or how much I haven't changed since then. Currently I can only think of one with Fury, and that's range, which is the 8 mana 3 range. There's quite a few cards with Fury that are around. At least potentially not in this new set, but there's still a few out there. But we are nearing the end of the stream here today. We've got just a couple of minutes left, and we've only got about 5 days before these reward cards come into existence on their own. Thankfully, on the preview server, we've also got this nice little soulbound filter, so you can see only the new reward cards, and of course with the other elements that will come into the game as well with sets, we'll see a simplification of this interface element as well, which is something excellent to look forward to. So there's lots of stuff happening, lots of stuff about to happen. I, for one, am looking forward to all of it. It's going to be interesting to see how these cards are felt about and feared when they're actually used in battle, because that will, of course, change everything. Hopefully on Monday evening when I do my stream, I'll be able to play some battles on the test server with these. But until then, thanks for your time. Have a wonderful existence, and I'll catch you all again very, very soon. Cheers.